Hi, I'm Alejandro Pacheco, and I'm going to talk about all the topics that we discussed in my English culture and civilization class. And the unit one, we were introduced to the American culture. We learned about what is a culture, the visible and invisible parts of the culture, and what I mean by that is the cultural iceberg and the cultural elements, and also we studied about the difference that may have a culture to other. Well, as an example of this, um, we discuss the invisible and invisible aspects of their cultures. It can be things like music, like their beliefs, for example, and also with the cultural elements that are part of the culture are like their traditions, their language, their behavior, their beliefs, etc. And it and why it is important for us to learn it? Well, I think it's important to know the the specific aspects and things that we can see directly about the different cultures, specifically in this case the American culture, but also learn about the things that we can't see easily, the things that we just can learn just knowing the people and seeing how they act or what they think, for example. Our second unit, it's about the American cultural symbols and the U.S. history. Here we discuss about what is a cultural symbol, the cultural symbols, the history of the United States, and the cultural comparisons, and if the imperialism is the United States as an imperium, it's imperialist, for example. As example of the things that we saw here, we learn about the multiple cultural symbols the United States has, like for example the flag, the rose, the oak tree, and also we learn about the history, all the things that happened through the history to the country that are important to know of how's the country today. In my case, me and my group, we did an exposition about the Great Depressions in the 20s in the US, for example, and we and in the debate we, at least from a point of view, we reached the point that we admitted that the United States can be an imperialism, but not in the same way that are other imperials, because they don't make an influence as the way that others do, with their power or attack. They generally do it other ways, and actually, it's like a very disgusting, a very discuss. I think that gave us a lot of discussion in general, not just us, but if United States is an imperium or not. And what's important to know this? Well, obviously, if we want to learn about the language that we are learning, and we're trying to, well, we are learning to teach, it's important to us to also know the culture of the one of the country, in the case one of the countries that is one of the major English speakers in the world. And it's important to know their symbols and their history to see what they think, how they see those symbols, how important are for them, and their history that had made they formed the country as how it's today. Then in the third unit we discuss the influence of other cultures in the American English. That means that we learn about the language being a cultural maker, the history of the English in the country, the linguistic influence of the country, and the dialect of the United States, and the British English versus the American English. An example of this, we, for example, in the linguistic influence, we learn the different words that have been acquired from other languages to the English, or the history of the English that we saw, that it's how it came to the country and how it have been evolving through the years, and also why the English, the British English and the American English have been, well, developed very different through the years and have very differences. And also the dialects, the different dialects that people have depending of their culture on where they're from. For example, the white people don't have the same dialect of the black people, and also in the past, the other dialects that wasn't like the white one was considered like wrong. And the reason that it's important to know us to know this, it's 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 because we learn that it's because in this way they teach us about how the language has evolved to, well, particularly it teachers have seen how the language have evolved to this today, and all the different languages that are help them to develop in the way that we know today. And for the fourth one, we learn about the norms, the values, and the different cultural institutions that they have. For example, the formal and informal social norms, the social expectations, the cultural intentions and cooperations, and the governance position of the social institutions. For example, the healthcare institution, the police officers, the army, amongst many others. Also with the expectation that they have for the people, that can be the individualism, that can be individualism, things like if they're on time or not, or the many different expectations and the norms that the culture or the country has. And for example, and well, and final, and what is important to learn know this, because we can see the differences and why they expect to us, what they expect from the people, what they believe that they do, what is morally or correct to do, or the way that they act or expect the people to act, or the things that they value a lot, and also all the institutions that can help, or all the people have, or the different institutions that make the society of the United States the way that it is, and the positives or negative impacts that they have in their own nations and maybe influence in other countries. And in general, why is important to us as to language, foreign languages students, it's important to learn all of this in this class. Well, we think that is important because not only we learn about how this language, the English language, came to the United States, and how it has been evolving through the years, years. We also learn about the history of one of the biggest English speaker countries in the world, and we see how their history, all the bad and good things that have happened to them, and how different languages, the immigration, and many different things have happened to have make the language evolve in the way that we know it today. And it's important to us to learn it because it's part of what we are studying. It's very important to know where this language came from, how have been evolving, and how important it is to us to learn all these things. Thanks for the attention.